Adobe Elements Workspace. There are three areas to look at using Adobe Elements. This first area right here is the player window. This is the timeline. It could be the seam line, but we're going to work in timeline. And the third area is the album over here. So we have the player window and the timeline. Now if I take my mouse pointer, I put it right between the player window and the timeline on that blue line. I can change the amount of space that the player window gets and the amount of space that the timeline gets. I'm going to look at three basic tasks that we can work with when we're using the Adobe Workspace. The first is the scale option. When I look at the timeline based on the scaler, as I drag the scale bar left and right, I change how much space the timeline has available. In this case, I've got 14 seconds of space available on the timeline. That means if I put a picture on the timeline and it took more than 14 seconds, it would actually be off the screen. But now if I change the scale and move it back this way, now I could have 4 minutes and 16 seconds. So now I could have all sorts of clips on the timeline and I'd be able to see them. So that's one option. A second option is to delete empty tracks, and I like to do that at the beginning as well. So if I right click on the timeline, I select delete empty tracks, I'll get rid of tracks that I don't need or that aren't being used. So it just makes it easier to organize what's available.